mic or have it in the stand? In the stand. Here, I'll just move this. Ryan, you might have to do the technical part here.
So, I've already been introduced, but my name is Barb Halpin. Is that good? Can you hear me? Hello? All right? It's okay. So, I've been married to my husband, Rob Halpin, for 39 years. I actually wrote down amazing husband, but he said, I really don't want you to say that. So, like a good wife, I didn't say it. So, we have 4 grown children, all married with families of their own. And I was raised in a Christian home. Prayer and faith were an everyday part of life. I was a preteen when I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And from that point, my faith continued to grow. After Rob and I were married, I became Catholic, and we continued our faith journey raising our family. Recently, Deacon Charles asked if I'd do my testimony, and that the theme was a perfect storm. I actually was pretty reluctant to do it, but we've had a few storms the last while, and I just felt too tired, but he kind of put me in an arm lock, and, well, here I am. So as far as storms in nature, I absolutely love storms. As a teenager living at Wasaga Beach, when a storm was rolling in and the boats were coming in off the bay, my dad and I would just look at each other, would drop everything, would hop in our boat, and would head out. And we'd be cresting through the waves, would be gunning the motor and cresting, and some of the waves would break over top of us. And the waves would break over top of us, and we'd have the bilge pump running on high so the boat wouldn't flood and sink. And soaked to the skin, we'd head for the next wave. And it was pretty, it was intense. It was just invigorating to go out in the storm. My mom, she'd be at home praying that we'd get back safely. So, and even on our farm, Rob and I would, when a storm was coming in, would go up on the roof of our farmhouse to watch it come in, because we always loved a good storm. To me, it shows God's awesome power. The storms in my life I'd face in the same manner. I'd go out to greet them head on. It is during these times I would feel closest to God. I'd feel more connected. I could pray harder with God's word and constantly on my mind and in my heart. God would give me the ability to trust more no matter the outcome. Much like the waves crashing over my head, I'd feel immersed in the presence of God. But over the last few years, we've had our share of storms. And some family closest to us, their storms joined in with ours. I actually thought of giving a list, but I was only given a few minutes to speak, so I just picked a few things. Some of the storms have been just trying to be with our parents as much as possible as they're aging and passing away. Others have been with our children to help them when grandchildren have had illnesses. And then, sorry, I lost my track. We're guardians of Rob's brother, and the group home has had some changes. He's had some health problems. Then we also went through, my sister's husband got very sick, and we went through trying to be with her while her husband passed away last November. And then our son-in-law recently lost his father to cancer. So we've just tried to be there for them too. And then we also have, just trying to keep up with our businesses and things that would happen that would add to the workload. And of course, in the midst of this, I injured my knee and was hobbling around and eventually had surgery and recovery from that. So that's just to name a few of the storms that have gone on in the last little while. And as after any storm, you go out and survey what has survived, what is damaged and is in need of repair, and what is broken and lost. So you start to pick up the pieces and do the repairs. I seem to be able to manage during the storms because I keep my mind and heart on God. As things started to slow down, I realized how exhausted I was. Ephesians chapter 6 talks about the armor of God that keeps us safe as Christians. Mine was looking pretty battered and started to feel very heavy. So I slowly dropped the armor off. I would go to bed without praying. I stopped holding up my shield of faith for protection. The Word of God is the sword of the Spirit, but I stopped reading my Bible, all because I was just too tired. Piece by piece, I dropped the armor off. And it wasn't long before my own selfishness rises to the surface. I become difficult to live with. The sense of peace and joy that comes from God fades, and I realize I have kicked God out of the boat. And faith is kind of like marriage. You do not walk around always feeling in love. It's a decision, and I need to choose to continue to love even when I don't feel like it. Same with my faith. I know sometimes I feel distant from God, but I also know that the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross 2,000 years ago is still there waiting for me. So again, I choose to trust in Jesus even when I don't feel like it. Because in my head and heart, I know the only way to weather the storms is by allowing our God to be in charge. All the things I'm holding on to, my moods, the exhaustion, my wanting to be in control, need to be laid down at the foot of the cross, then leave it there and restart my journey with God.
Thank you, Barb, for sharing with us and giving us some practical tips, because I think we all face storms. I'm not sure we face the intensity that you have, and just being friends of yours, we've just, every time a new one would come along, we think, not another one. Oh, man. So thank you guys for the beautiful people you are and for sharing your thoughts with us. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Sam. Thank goodness I don't have to think about another fun fact for Charles. I get a break this week. If anybody knows of any other fun facts that haven't been mentioned in the last 3 years for Charles, please see me over dessert tonight for next week. But Sam is our speaker tonight and is going to talk about the storm. And I do have a fun fact about Sam, and I think if I can get a little help from Darcy on tech. A couple of weeks ago we had a retreat where all of us who are involved in the ministry here and putting on Wednesday nights got together and really had a wonderful, uplifting session. So while we were relaxing a bit, we came to realize that Sam is the undisputed slip and slide king of our ministry. So let's roll the video. Here is Sam. Look at catching the ball in midair. He's going down the slope. Farther, he breaks through everybody else's record right off the end of the plastic. And Sam's secret was he took about a gallon of liquid soap and just poured it all over his rear end and the carpet. And we thought he was going to go like right out over the Saugeen and onto the next field. It was amazing. So, thank you, Sam. So Sam's going to talk about the storm, and I think he's had a little bit of a storm getting ready for tonight. So Sam, we'll turn it over to you. Do you have a mic, or?
We're going to start with a song, Kynan and I. And Darcy's going to put the words up. That's why you're asking me how to insert a video in there. It's all coming clear now. Sneaky. Sorry. The waves crash in, the tide rolls out. It's an angry sea, but there is no doubt that the lighthouse will keep shining out to warn this lonely sailor. And the lightning strikes and the wind cuts cold through the sailor's bones, through the sailor's soul, till there's nothing left that we can hold except the rolling ocean. Oh, I am ready for the storm. Yes, sir, ready. I am ready for the storm. Ready for the storm. Oh, give me mercy for my dreams, as every confrontation seems to tell me what it really means to be this lonely sailor. But when the sky begins to clear, the sun, it melts away my fear, and I cry a silent, weary tear for those who mean to love me. Oh, I am ready for the storm. Yes, sir, ready. I am ready for the storm. Ready for the storm. The distance, it is no real friend. And time will take its time, and you will find that in the end it brings you me, this lonely sailor. And when you take me by the hand and you love me, Lord, you love me. And I should have realized I had no reasons to be frightened. Oh, I am ready for the storm. Yes, sir, ready. I am ready for the storm. Yes, sir, ready. I am ready for the storm. Yes, sir, ready. I am ready for the storm. Ready for the storm. Take note. Store there. The gravity's working. Good thing we don't have to pay for it yet. Never know. So hi, my name's Sam. Most of you know me already. I don't think anyone's, could be new people here, who knows? Or watching online. I work here at the parish. I'm the Director of Youth and Evangelization, whatever that means. I guess I've got a mic. I was reaching for a mic. I'm really beside myself here. I also can't see. Can someone turn on some lights? Anybody? The back door's open, I think. Maybe that one is too. So, that was a song written by Doogie McLean. Irish fellow, I believe. And Rich Mullins made it famous in the 80s. He covered it, and he was getting kind of big at the time. And it became like a lot of people's favorite song, even though he didn't write it, and he always made fun of them for liking a song that he didn't even write. But Rich Mullins passed away in 1997 and in a car accident. And I remember that very distinctly because he had a very stormy life, and he went through a lot in his life. It was a movie about his life. He had a big impact on me growing up. I listened to We used to put tapes on in the barn while we were doing chores, and we would listen to this tape over and over again. Back then, to the young ones here, tapes had like 10 songs on them, and the one side would run out, and then you had to flip it over and play the other side, and then it would run out. And then when you flipped it over, surprise, you're back at the start. Right? So we would do that over and over and over on the same tape with Ready for the Storm in it. And that song's been important to me. And I thought it was perfect for tonight. Are we ready for the storm? As the person as Doogie McLean says in the chorus, I am ready for the storm. And we're talking about the storm tonight. Charles did a great job of getting us on board. That was the first week of the Perfect Storm theme. All aboard. Whether or not we want to get into the boat with Jesus and with all these other crazy Christians was kind of the question that Charles answered the first week. Then cast off. We're leaving the shore behind. We're saying goodbye to, in some ways, comfort and the security of being on land. Being on the water is riskier. It's more dangerous. And last week, my favorite one so far, mutiny. Who was here last week? Okay, great. Mutiny means to kind of overthrow the ship's leadership. So maybe the captain, you have a mutiny against the captain. The other shipmates, they agree to have a mutiny, and they grab the captain, and they might throw him overboard or hang him or whatever they do to him. Something nasty. Hello there. And that's what a mutiny is. And mutiny in our lives, as it pertains to our lives, is sin. Sin is a mutiny against God because it takes control away from God. It takes God out of his rightful place, and we put ourselves there instead. That is what we're struggling with. That's what mutiny is. So all this has happened so far, and now we're at the storm. Storms are a natural occurrence. I love looking up the definition of words because the dictionary sometimes has some surprising definitions. It's a violent disturbance in the atmosphere. That's what Merriam-Webster says. A violent disturbance in the atmosphere. Often the collision between two masses of air or weather systems. So you probably know that. Living around here, we often get nice, warm, humid air in the summer, like today. And then what will happen is a cold front will come, and boom, they smack together in the middle, and they create a storm. That's what a storm is. A perfect storm, where the title comes from for our series, is the convergence of two or more major storms that collide together and form one perfect storm. It's perfect kind of in a tongue-in-cheek way because storms aren't perfect. It's the most terrifying, the most horrible storm, but it's perfect because all the conditions are perfect to make it huge and powerful. So naturally, one of the worst places to be during a storm is on a boat. I love what Barb was talking about with being on the boat during a storm. It's the worst place to be because you are so vulnerable to the atmosphere, to this violent disturbance around you. There's waves, there's wind, the boat is moving back and forth. Boats have to stay upright. You probably knew that. Or they will sink. They shouldn't take on too much water. And boats are a dangerous place to be during a storm. And that's exactly what happened to Jesus and his friends in Mark chapter 4. And I'm going to read this for you. Now, just one comment before we read it. A lot of his followers were fishermen. They lived near the Sea of Galilee, and they spent a lot of their time fishing. That was their trade, was fishing. So they knew everything about boats. I mean, I've boated a few times, but I'm terrible at it. I actually sold my boat because of it. I got rid of it. I was too scared. But these men were seasoned fishermen. They were very, very good at their jobs. So I'm going to read to you this passage from Mark chapter 4. Jesus stills a storm. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. Other boats were with him. A great gale arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern. Oops, sorry, I got to flip the slide. He was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased and there was a dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" So my question tonight, for all of us, including me, because I'm feeling like in many ways my life is particularly stormy today. Not for one particular reason, but just I'm feeling that way. My question is, what is or was the perfect storm in your life? I imagine that many of you are experiencing a storm right now in your life. Something that's going on, a convergence of different factors that have combined to form one catastrophe. Maybe it's something, maybe right now you're like, well, you know, it's choppy, but not terrible. Or maybe it's calm for you right now. Thanks be to God. Then think of a time when you were in a storm, when two or more systems collided to form a perfect storm. That's what I want you to think about for the rest of the talk and for our response a little bit later. Some things to think about. It could have been something, it could have been a relationship that suddenly dissolved or was wounded. It could be a health problem. It could be the death of someone you care about, someone close to you, someone that you knew. It could be financial catastrophe. It could be psychological, something that you have no control over that you're going through in terms of your mental health. It could be an addiction. It could be the abuse that you suffered at the hands of someone else. It could be a mistake that you made or an error. It could be a sin that you committed that you're now sort of paying the price for. It's caused a storm of events in your life. Those are just some of the things that could collide to form the perfect storm. Charles sort of gave this away last week. I don't know, he's not literally listening. Oh, he's back there, he's listening. Yeah, he almost even told you the date that I was thinking of. So I was trying to think of a time in my life when I experienced a perfect storm of converging crises. And the date that comes to mind is August the 1st, 2002. It's a long time ago, before some of you were born. I'm aware of that, thank you. And August the 1st, 2002, I was 23 years old. I was working here at the parish, and I was currently dating my now wife, Michelle. So we were boyfriend and girlfriend, getting pretty serious, I guess you could say. And anyway, it was August the 1st, and I was on my lawn. I lived here in Hanover on 11th Ave, and I was on my lawn, and our pastor, Father Dave Cote, some of you remember him, he came driving up he had this crappy Dodge minivan. Before they were nice Dodge minivans, they were really crappy ones, the square ones. He had one of those. He drove up, he parked outside my house. He said, "Sam, you got to get in the car." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'll get in the car." I got in the car. What's going on? Something terrible's happened. They started to drive. Turns out that one of the youth in our youth group, a very regular member of the youth group, had died. He'd been killed in a crash, a farm accident. And Father Dave was the first person the family called, so he was actually going there to be with the family as they, at ground zero, like moments after they found out he had been killed. And had I known that, I may have said, "Whoa, I'm not the right person to go. I'm not prepared for this kind of, I'm not trained, I'm not really the right person. Maybe I should stay back, and pray for you or something." But he got me in the car first and then told me, so then we were already on the way, so then I went with him. It was a very difficult night, obviously more for the family, but for me it was very dark and stormy, like a storm. Just because it was chaotic. There were a lot of emotions. There was a lot of trauma and crying and even screaming and I think they were handling it very well for what they were going through, but it was so close to the incident that it was quite intense. So that happened on Thursday night, August the 1st. And this is the young man, Ian Lennox here, God rest his soul. And the next day, I thought, okay, last night was really intense. I had been on the phone with some of the other youth. The other youth in our youth group were distraught as well. So there were people calling, there were people visiting, there were people coming to the church. It was like, there was a thing at the high school. It was like a big, well, not the high school, but they had like a thing at some of the different parishes around here held something for the other youth that had kind of been affected. And I was like, okay, we need a break. So Michelle and I decided to go up to Rowan Sound for a date. And so we're driving in my nice Acura. I had an Acura. And we were driving to Springmount, and I was talking, probably using my hands like I do, like this. And I know I was probably looking at Michelle a little too much next to me. And I took my eyes off the road for a second, and when I looked up, I was right about to crash into the car in front of me. And I crashed into the car in front of me, and I crashed in the car so hard that that car crashed into the car in front of it, and that car crashed into the car in front of it. And I think that car crashed into the car in front of it. It was like a 5-vehicle pile-up because of me. Okay, so.
Good job, Sam.
What?
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. So, I wasn't hurt badly. Michelle wasn't hurt badly, thank God. The people in front of us were hurt, but I don't know how badly because I didn't really get a follow-up from them. But there were ambulances, there were police cars, there were fire engines, there were tow trucks, there was press. I don't know if there was press there. Whatever. Anyway, it was a catastrophe. I was there for hours. And how many of you have had whiplash before? Yeah. So whiplash sometimes takes a while you don't really feel it initially because there's so much adrenaline, but that night, I just felt like I was dying. I was in pain all over my body. I was in so much pain. I remember kind of laying on the floor of my house because I just couldn't get comfortable. I was just laying on the floor, and what was going through my mind was like, God, what the heck? What the heck are you doing here? What is going on? This one thing, now this. So, I was 23, only had one car. Now I don't have a car. It was an expensive car. Now it's gone. I'm also in a lot of pain. The medication's not helping, whatever. I was feeling really guilty for what I had done. I had put Michelle in danger. I had endangered the lives of all these people. I had endangered my own life. I was feeling really, really terrible. And it was a storm. It was so dark and so heavy. And I wasn't sure how I would get through it. And that weekend was, I think, probably, this is why I think of that time, because it was one of the hardest weekends ever. Just because Saturday night we had Mass here. After Mass, all the youth in the youth group came. We had a big, long, 2-hour, memorial thing where everybody it was just intense. The whole weekend, there was a wake, there was a funeral. It was a lot to do while I was, hobbling around like this. I didn't have to wear the cone of shame or anything. I just sucked, kind of tried to pretend it wasn't hurting, but it was really painful.
That's what dogs wear.
I know. That's what dogs wear.
Yeah, it's called a neck brace.
It's called a neck brace. That's kind of. I'm glad there's no one here with a neck brace on, or I probably would realize right now that you're wearing a neck brace. But anyway, no offense to anyone who has worn a neck brace. So that was my stormy day. And I got through it. Looking back, it doesn't seem as bad now, but now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I really do remember the way it felt. And there were a lot of residual effects. For a while, was terrified to ride in a passenger seat with someone else driving because I would always feel like we were going to crash into the car in front of me. And that lasted for years and years and years afterwards. I mean, even now still, if the person I'm driving with isn't a great driver, I'm still a little bit I just have this image of the car coming up towards me. So anyway, that was a stormy weekend for me. And I imagine you have a storm, something like that, a time in your life when you just couldn't see the end of it, when the waves and the wind was blowing around you and it was terrifying and you weren't sure you would get out. Weren't sure you would get out alive, maybe. I want to go through 5 things that we can learn from tonight's reading that I want to take into our prayer time. So please think about that storm in your life as we're going through these 5 things. The first one is, storms happen naturally, but we can make them ourselves. The storms I'm talking about, we can make them ourselves. So I mentioned that in my story. I felt so guilty. I felt like if I relived the moment over and over again in my life, and I wished I could go back and just say, keep your eyes on the road, you know? Don't talk with your hands, or whatever I was doing. I don't even remember. But I felt so guilty. I had so much shame for what I had done that had caused much of this storm. It wasn't all caused by me. I had no control over the other things that happened that weekend, but that was one that made it much, much worse. And I wonder if you can relate to that, if you can think of a time when you really felt responsible for the storm, for that catastrophe that affected you and other people. Because I certainly did. Point number 2. Bringing Jesus along does not guarantee smooth sailing. So, I became a Christian because of really good Christian upbringing, partly, and also because of the witness of other Christians. And I don't remember anyone telling me that being a Christian would be easy, but I really feel like that is something that we shouldn't tell people if we're telling them about God. We should not tell them that it's going to make their life easy. Bringing Jesus along does not guarantee smooth sailing. In fact, if you read the gospel, if you read what Jesus actually said, he pretty much promised it would be the opposite to that. He said things like this: in this world you will have trouble, but fear not, I have overcome the world. He promised we would have trouble. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. Anyone who would come after me must take up his cross and follow me. Take up his cross, just like Jesus carried his cross in so much pain and anguish. That's what he's calling us to do. Anyone who loses his life will save it. Anyone who wishes to find his life will lose it. And anyone who loses his life will save it. These are things Jesus said because he wanted us to know that even though he's there, it will not make our life in this world easier. It will not mean smooth sailing. What it does guarantee, and this is what I think Charles was saying at the very start, the reason we get in the boat in the first place, why would we want Jesus in our boat then? It does guarantee an eventual end to our storm and a safe arrival at our destination. He does guarantee that, but there will be storms along the way. Number 3, God cares even when he is silent. This is the reason I chose Mark's telling of this story. It's in all of the Gospels in different ways, Matthew, Mark, and Luke especially. Mark's is the only one where the disciples on the boat cry out, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" I love that because it shows their vulnerability and the way they were feeling at this moment. They were seasoned fishermen. They had Jesus, the guy they thought was the Son of God and the Messiah, in the boat with them. They got caught in a storm somehow, even though they were very talented, experienced fishermen. And they gave in to the fear, and they were angry. I love there's like an anger in their voice. Do you not care that we are perishing? Have you ever felt like that towards God? Have you ever felt that God didn't care about your storm? Or that he's asleep? I can relate to that. To wondering if God even knows or even cares. That's what the disciples themselves were saying that. They could see the storm, they could see the water coming in the boat, but they could not see that in the boat was the master of the storm, the master of the sea. Jesus is still in our boat. And if that's you and your faith is being rocked like this, because God and God has been silent, you aren't alone. God hasn't forgotten you or abandoned you. You need to stay in the boat and trust him. Just a little aside here. Sirach chapter 2, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, verse 10. Consider the generations long past and see. Has anyone trusted in the Lord and been disappointed? Has anyone persevered in his fear and been forsaken? Has anyone called upon him and been ignored? They're all rhetorical questions, and the answer is no. No one has ever trusted in the Lord and been forsaken or disappointed. Jesus himself experienced what the disciples felt on that boat when he was on the cross. When he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He felt that abandonment that we sometimes feel. And he wants us to know that he understands and that we can trust him. Number 4, let Jesus be in command. When Jesus calms the storm, it says that they were terrified. I think actually the word is they were filled with great awe, but one of the translations I read said they were terrified. When he did that, when he commanded the storm to be quiet, they suddenly saw him for who he is. They suddenly saw that he is the master. He is the one that belongs at the helm of our lives because he's the master. He's the master of our storm. And whatever it is we go through, he is the master. I have a real problem with this because I'm a do-it-yourselfer. One of the sources of pride in my life, bad pride, is that I think I can fix anything. So I often get myself in over my head, fixing things I can't fix. I've been there, yeah. And one of the worst feelings for me is not being at the helm or not being in control. I hate not being in control. And I even have trouble letting others be in control. I just want to do it myself, so I know it's done right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Does sound like somebody. And the last one, stay in the boat. There will be calm after the storm. And so I wanted to close with this one, because as long as we're in the boat and Jesus is with us, we have nothing to fear. And it requires a decision of us, a decision to let Jesus be in control, to trust him, that he knows what we're going through and he has a plan. Even though sometimes, like the verse on our poster says, his footsteps are unclear. Sometimes we don't know what that plan is and we can't see where he's leading us. And we long for the still waters, for that dead calm, as the gospel says, in our lives. But we have to experience the storm to get there, and we have to trust in Jesus. So we're going to hand out the slips of paper now, I believe. Someone is. And we're going to go into a prayer time where you can respond to what we've been talking about tonight. I want you to write briefly, maybe in an acronym, I don't know, the storm going on in your life, or the storm that you've been through, or the storm someone you love is going through. Write that down, and then tell Jesus how you're feeling. Like the disciples, maybe you're crying out, "Don't you understand? Where are you? Why are you not listening?" Or maybe you do see God working in the storm. Just be honest with God and bring the slips up. There's a little box here for those, and we'll pray over them once we've finished.